Ray. Good to have you back. Let's go ahead and figure out how we're going to talk about this, because here's the thing. I'm looking through some articles about this during the break, right? More. And what I find is there are too many Republicans involved with this, too many Republicans. And closed circuit to Louisiana. Could you please get rid of Bill Cassidy for a variety of reasons? This being the latest. But honestly, they're like, well, here's Sheldon Whitehouse. Newsflash, Republicans. If Sheldon Whitehouse is talking about economic plans and so forth, you're probably in the wrong place. What are your thoughts, Ray?
Yeah, no, good advice. It is bewildering. I mean, it used to be pretty simple that the one thing you count on Republicans, all Republicans, was that they were not in favor of tax increases, right? But you've got a handful of them here in the mix that in the U.S. Senate that are playing this bipartisan energy climate package game, and part of it is this, consideration of this tax on imports of carbon-intensive goods. And listen, this sets up, if you were to go down this path, first off, you've got tremendous tax increase on consumers. Why we're talking about this now is beyond my comprehension, as you mentioned. And then you've got the infrastructure set up to ramp up climate regulation even more, to ramp up carbon taxes even more. So this is laying the groundwork for some very bad things going forward, never mind what we're talking about in the immediate future here. So I scratch my head. It's
interesting. Well, it's interesting, Ray, that we sit here, we talk about these things, while China's building literally more than 100 coal-fired power plants around the world. More than 100, 100 in their country and dozens more in small countries where they put their Silk and Road Initiative right into the heart of other countries to build power plants, coal-fired power plants. And in China, many of those coal-fired power plants, they're not even starting them. They're just putting them there brand new and putting a cover over them for future reference. What does that tell you? Do you think they're really going to be carbon-free if they're building brand new coal-fired power plants while they're bringing in millions of metric tons of coal from places like Mongolia, where the biggest coal mine in the world is? 24 hours a day, they're bringing coal, dirty coal, by the way, from Mongolia to China, and they're going to shut things down and clean up the world? Give me a break.
Listen, if you want to trust the communist Chinese on this issue, then okay, go ahead. But part of me, listen, the economist in me is like, okay, listen, we've got great coal here, the coal industry. We produce clean coal. Maybe it's our opportunity to expand coal exports. That's part of my answer here. But the bottom line is, how are you possibly, what you're getting at is, how would you possibly enforce this, right? I mean, think about how complicated, what a mess this would be in terms of trying to assess the amount of carbon embedded in imported goods, judging the policies in other countries.
It's a stupid policy. It's a reckless policy. It's virtue signaling and ripping resources away from small. But let's be honest, Ray. Socialists hate small business and small business owners because people like me that own small businesses have the nerve to think, we don't need government. We can do this on our own. Please leave us alone. That doesn't work for them. That's not the kind of... They want big companies that'll fall in line. Well, we're going to do this, you do that. And they say, okay, we'll get on board with you. Oh, by the way, here's $1 million for your re-election campaign. Those are the kind of companies that Democrats and people like Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana like. All right, so let's shift gears real quick. I got about 3 minutes here. On the more general idea of the economy, Americans, to say they're turning sour is being way too polite. The confidence in the economy has fallen away. It's the worst it's been in a very long time, isn't it?
Well, especially when you look at the polls of small business owners, you're absolutely right. So, and no one should be surprised by this. We've got raging inflation that we haven't seen since the late 70s, very early 1980s. We've got policymakers that don't really have a clue as to how to deal with this, and in fact, they want to make things worse, not only with this carbon tax we're talking about, but they're looking at income tax increases. They're looking at increased regulation on all fronts, the exact opposite of what we need to do in this situation. So as we struggle with still getting out of a pandemic economy and all these other problems, here's a crazy idea. How about tax and regulatory relief? How about things like that will actually help us?
Yeah, I would say that's where we need to be. We need regulatory relief. But it's not just the small businesses. It's the people going to work. It's the people looking up and saying, oh, my God, gas went up 15 cents overnight. It was already crushing people. If you're in California, you might look up and honestly see $8 a gallon, depending on where you are. How do you survive?
There's no one escaping this, right? Yeah, right, exactly. I mean, consumers, individuals, families, small businesses, and quite frankly, large businesses as well. There aren't any large businesses sitting around saying, this is just fantastic, right? This is bad news across the board here, so we need to get policy pointed in the right direction. That means the Fed has to stop playing the games they've been playing for 15 years and maybe get back to price stability, right? And we need, as we mentioned already, tax and regulatory relief. How about reining in government spending rather than dreaming up new ways to spend taxpayer dollars? This is the direction we need to go in, and it's very frustrating as an economist to watch everything going in the opposite direction.
Yeah, it is going in the wrong direction. Ray, glad we got to connect. Glad to have you here. We'll do it again sometime soon because we need economists that actually can tell the truth. It's a remarkable thing in this day and age. Thank you, sir, for being here.